Good evening, everybody. How's it going? Saturday night even, and we have brought on board tonight one of the biggest power thetans there are, Gary Jackson Moorhead. Thank you so much for joining.
What
How you
did you
doing?
just say?
One of the biggest power thetans. You're a power
Power,
thetan,
power
like
things.
doing the work, activism. Love it. How are
Well,
you
hello,
doing, man?
Alex, over the pond.
Yeah. How's it going? Thank you for joining.
Yeah. I just, I've kind of observed through the grapevine of just what other people's, uh, yeah, other people's expressed opinions of this, that, and the other thing, and it's something that had always bugged myself about taking 5 or 10 minutes of, hi, Cubana Chico, from Cuba, which is beautiful. But just going through that, it's cool to say it, but I got to tell you, it's odd. It's like uh, dead air, but not dead air time, and people kind of become bored of it. But I got to say, I want to highlight the fact that it still doesn't remove my inner desire as a human to thank people for being here and saying their comments, because I do see them. I do know the human being and these people involved particularly do like to see that they've been acknowledged for their presence. But if
Yeah,
you are making a comment in the chat, I'm doing the best I can to see it. And if you throw an entertaining one out there, I'll certainly make mention of it. But I think they can be
absolutely.
understandable that as much as I want to say hi to all the highs and I'm here.
We'll be
Um,
here forever.
yeah, we'll be here forever, and that's
Yeah,
no disrespect to you expressing
no,
a hello either.
absolutely.
So it's hard.
Um,
It's hard to state that without hopefully not getting a go f yourself,
oh no,
kind of
for
thing. I don't,
sure.
which I don't think will happen. I'm just saying. I just naturally feel driven to say
Yeah,
hello, like Julie Claire.
it's hard. It's
Anyways,
hard to go through everybody. But I will be starring
yes,
stuff
my
as we go
buddy
along.
Jefferson Hawkins
F
is in the house. Yo,
F
buddy.
Scientology London. I just wanted to pull this up because F Scientology London won a T-shirt on my stream yesterday, and
Oh,
I did get your email, so thank you. I'm going to reply with the giveaway link soon. Sorry, I haven't got around to it today. I'm massively behind on my emails, but great to see Jeff Hawkins in the house. How you doing?
yeah.
Thanks for joining. So today we are going to be talking about security because your experience in that, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but do you want to give a very short summary of like why I brought you on board to talk about Scientology security and why you know so much about it? Because you headed up security at the Int base, right?
Yes, between the years of 1979 and 1996, the majority of that time was spent at the international headquarters of Scientology's base out there in Gilman Hot Springs, California, residing near the foothills of the Mount San Jacinto and just north of the city of San Jacinto and Hemet, California. So, just to be more specific, if people ever geographically want to Google Maps and see where it's at and 3D Earth it, you'll get to see the playground that I played on for that entire time from 1982, 1982 until 97 when I left. So
Wow.
I ran, the last 7 or 8 years I was there, I ran security, helped part of the design and installation and managing and maintenance of the security system to what it initially was installed as and what it transitioned into becoming, which was first designed to keep people out, and then it served two purposes: to not only keep people out, but more importantly, be self-serving to Dave Miscavage's desires to keep people in. And quite honestly, any effort put into making it to button up holes for people easily escaping were at the orders of him and my actions in compliance to his order. So that's
That's
what
one of
I'm
the
here
things I was,
for. Yeah. And I
yeah.
come here to these channels. I involve myself on YouTube, nowhere near as often as I would like to. I just live a very busy working life, heavily involved in everyday rat race, if I may say, unfortunately. But you know what? I do live a good, productive life. So it doesn't afford me a lot of time when I get off work. I am beat and I need to get to sleep to start it all over again the next day. So
And that's really important. It's like boundaries and priorities, right? Some people prioritize YouTube, some people prioritize activism and protesting outside of YouTube, some people prioritize their actual lives. We are real
Yeah.
people and have lives and jobs outside of this. And you fit in YouTube videos when you can, and that's great. And
Well,
I'm
having
privileged to
said
have.
that, I don't turn a blind eye or ear to the listening public out there interested to have shake hands with true facts, the truth from the way I witnessed it of how Scientology came about to be what it is today, and hopefully answer questions to their wonderment of how did Scientology go so far off the rails. Well, I can give you a perspective from having been on that base pretty much every year that I was there, 365, 24/7, and had the free run gamut of involving myself and embracing every base staff member from miscavage on down to his self-assigned dumpster cleaners, and I chased down over 300 souls and brought them back.
Mm.
So I know there's people out there who wonder all the time, and it's the backbone of our efforts here, Alex. If I may step boldly up to the front line and go, that is what all this whole community of SPTV is really about. No matter of what may otherwise come up, ultimately our goal is to serve the people who come here earnestly listening and wanting to know more information from those that actually know it, not those who assume that they know it or elaborate on something they've heard from someone else as though they make themselves a figure that they know when in fact they don't. There's a strong community here of people who actually walk the walk, and I think our public, our viewing people, helps bring them to resolution to their own navigation through this mental cult trap that we all fell victim of, or even
Yeah.
those that were never in. They want to understand how did Scientology become so batshit crazy. Well, I got an answer to it from my own
Yeah.
perspective. So
Yeah.
there
And
you
how
have it.
they
That's me.
and how they can help in the fight as well. How can
Yeah,
we
if they
open?
have interest, even if it's somebody
Yeah.
who's under the radar, hopefully it's another day in which they can work closer to finally shaking that stigma of fear off their back that the church has so worked hard at instilling in a lot of people who earnestly showed up at the doorstep of Scientology seeking help, to only then find out that Scientology isn't the help they thought they were getting. It was actually being taken advantage of. So, anyways,
Yeah, I know that from personal experience. That's what happened to me. We're going to
yeah,
help you, and this is hope, and this is a
yeah,
mission, and great, sign me up. And then I was recruiting people. I thought it was the best thing to do to help increase the level of living and happiness and all of this in
yeah.
the world. And now I know, obviously, that that was a lie. But
And in the
that's what we're doing.
meantime, I wanted to let people know that it is a very real reality that even as of today, there are people, including myself, but not limited to myself, who actively work responding to and helping people reaching out looking for genuine help,
Hmm.
and doing the best we can. There's no manual, there's no how to do's. It is just being there for the individual, reaching out, calling in, looking for the help, and me and the person or whoever takes the phone call and the person calling in work hard towards resolution to the problem they're calling in about.
Yeah,
Whether
and
they just want to talk or they actually do need physical help, then we do whatever's needed. So
that's what I was going to say. The range of help that people need is so vast because there isn't one recovery journey. You have to do this and this and
no,
then this and then you're fine. Some people need physical help escaping, some
yeah,
people just need someone to talk to, some people
yep,
need financial help. And that's the whole thing that this community is all about, is listening to what people need and doing our best to come together to provide that, which I think is really powerful. um, I wanted to just go back to security a little bit, and you talked about how Scientology changed, and you were building these systems to stop people getting in, and it ended up being used to stop people getting out. How,
right.
like, what were the priorities for you as head of security, and how did they change over time?
Well,
At the
initially, L. Ron Hubbard, at the direction of L. Ron Hubbard, a security force was established at the int base. And the reason for that, the defining reason in which real serious effort and attitude was applied to that idea or that directive was born through one of the remote or outlying buildings at the property of Gilman Hot Springs. It was called the Greenskeeper's House. It housed a recording studio full of a lot of expensive equipment. And initially, L. Ron Hubbard specifically stated he did not want that property built up with fencing to make it look like a prison or some sort of encampment. He wanted to have that open feeling that which it used to be a resort gives, and to keep it that way until over $40,000 of church-owned recording equipment was stolen overnight. That changed, and then that changed into a limited amount of fencing. Naturally, had to go up to just simply defend against that. And then as time progressed, and that's really overlooking a lot of significant things to be said about it, but as time progressed, a lot more invested effort, time, and money went into let's take more of a serious approach to security. And then that was instituted. And then ultimately, when the property was built out and kind of refreshed and rebuilt to what we wanted it to be, rather than continuing to occupy an old resort thing, we changed the color scheme and the landscaping and put what we wanted there, and made a lake twice as big as it once was so we can recreational on it. And then with that came the security fence. Where do we want the perimeter fence? And the idea was kind of tight up closer to encase a number of buildings, and where you would be in that building, you can see the fence. Well, we didn't want that as to impose upon ourselves. So we moved the perimeter fence out to farther regions. And rather than being 100 feet out behind the next building, we put it almost a mile out behind, not a mile, but at least a half a mile back, so you couldn't even see it. And even so much so that we got a type of fencing that would blend in with the environment from a distance. You almost would just not see it. So we wanted the security system in it to be advanced, and it to be very functional and reliable and effective to keep people out. And me and a number of other guys who were still there worked hard on researching and proposing, and we had to put together a whole proposed package, send it all the way up to little Davy, Applebox boy, to get approval before we can then, once we got that approval, we would get the funds released from Sea Org reserves and go out and purchase everything and get the installation. And it was a very elaborate thing. So, whether we're here to have the time to go into those details, if that's what you want, I can do it. But hopefully I've just given you enough of a thumbnail of the approach. And then once it was built out and we, I guess, enjoyed the fact of how safe it was, because the goals of security was to create a distraction-free environment for the staff, the int-based staff, to allow them to focus 100% on managing and giving direction for the future of Scientology. I mean, literally, that was our drive and goals as a int-based staff member. We all mutually knew that all of our own individual contributions worked towards that.
So initially, the goal very much was not to threaten SEAL staff.
No.
Don't think about leaving the security fences. It wasn't to keep people in. It very much was honestly to protect and best intentions, right?
Yeah, and even so much, if some existing staff back in the earlier days when the established system became reality, some people did hop the fences and left, and not a lot of attention went into the fact, well, how did they get out?
Sure.
Well, that how did they get out was only highlighted by Dave. Why the hell are more people leaving? Why don't we go button up the fence, a-holes?
I think that says a lot about Dave Miscavige.
Yeah.
Why people are leaving, and the solution to that wasn't to actually look at why people are leaving and the working conditions and all that. It was to, what can we do to stop them from leaving?
Yeah. What do we need to do to physically stop them? Because I personally, and this is my personal opinion, but I think it entertained Dave on his wicked level of being the prick that he is, that he had the ability to do that. And it's like, ultimately, it didn't require them to agree or disagree with him. It didn't matter. He could control it so it can control them.
Mm.
And he would sit back and laugh because it would come up that someone tried to escape and they couldn't because they got caught. They set the alarms off. I mean, that was not an unusual thing to come up in someone's sex checking. And we wouldn't even know about it for a few months until they messed up and required interrogation and be sat down before somebody and be questioned about this, that, or the other thing. And they, through the belief of Scientology, believed that they had something to say and they had done something bad. So yeah, 3 weeks ago, I secretly at 2 o'clock in the morning was out trying to dig my way underneath the fence, and I bumped the fence, set the alarm off, I ran away, and nobody knew that I did it. That stuff did come up in people's confessionals.
Yeah.
So,
and these security measures,
excuse me.
These security measures are used all around the world. It's not just the int base. If you look at
Well,
St. Hill, for example,
they were extended from the int base.
There isn't a big fence around St.
No.
Hill, but there is motion sensors and cameras all along the perimeter. So it's international.
Any well-informed, person who's responsible for establishing security anywhere in any facility, Scientology or not, is going to take a good look at what they have in front of them. And our environment was kind of unique in the Scientology world, is that there are other properties, such as up there up on the mountain where Shelley's last known to be at the Church of Spiritual Technology locations. Those were like geographically repeat scenarios of what the M-base had the ability to do, which was to put a fence up all around itself. And whereas you can't do that down in Los Angeles around Big Blue Building, what everybody knows to be the Big Blue Building, we know in the inside it's PAC building, or you can't do it around Clearwater, or you can't do it around the Chicago org or the Tennessee org or the Flag building. It just, they don't have the real estate available to do that. And then also there will be a severe public relations impact occurring just simply by that. So they have to come up with not only achieving the same level of security the base has, they just have to figure it out in a different way. And it may just even be what am I trying to say? It just may be offset by having a larger, more active roving security force, such as they probably do at Flag, and down in PAC. They put guards on bikes, and they have many more cameras to offset the lack of ability to put fences up. So they have a room full, and I've seen the rooms, and it's kind of crazy to sit there in front of all those monitors. And that time, it was probably 1/10 of the monitors they have now, or they have multiple locations. Because it's kind of crazy. A human cannot watch 1,000 monitors. I mean, just look at Las Vegas as an example. They have multiple viewing rooms, for lack of things to say. But where all those cameras run back to, they got to be somewhere, and they're tied into a recording device to capture the images the cameras are looking at. So, and then also there's further, not only just having a simple camera tied into a recorder, there has to be features. There's features in the security field offered to identify faces that the cameras are looking at, and different film frame rates in which you can capture how much footage and be stored on a hard drive. There's a lot of technical stuff that simply could be put in play, and a lot of that's at play nowadays in a lot of the off-int base areas, simply because they don't have the ability to put a fence up. So I may be saying more than people are interested in hearing about. Just trying to give you the understanding of the diversity of the security problems in the Scientology. It's not really the Scientology world, meaning your class 5 orgs. You're not going to see this level of security of the class 5 orgs. You're going to see them in the organizations of Church Scientology International. Internationally, you will see it that way. So.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, is the extent at which they go to, number plate recognition cameras and face recognition and all of this. So if a car drives past, they're not going to run every number plate. But if a car drives past and parks up on the verge and they get out and start protesting, they're going to run your plate because they have cameras to pick up on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll give you an example of how we set ourselves up and how we came about this. Is we had a drive-by shooting at the base one year. One night, I came back from the firehouse. It was a night that I was out training as a firefighter. to increase PR thing, but it was satisfying my personal desire to be a firefighter. And I literally had just arrived back, went downstairs in the manufacturing building to use the old porcelain throne to figure out my next strategic move as a security chief. And next thing you know, I hear screaming over the radio as a drive-by shooting, and I go racing up, and we had a little drill because again, we were in a remote location, so we had a single highway that ran east and west, and we had a guard up in the hill in the Eagle booth, the Eagle spot, where basically, the nature, high elevated security position is a security code. You call it the Eagle's Nest, So
someone actually asked here, other streams have mentioned sniper posts over at the Gold Base.
Yeah,
is that more than just lookout posts and not real snipers?
Now, this idea of a sniper thing, idealistic, because it's an elevated security position, you naturally would think we'd have a sniper. No. I would always shoot down the toxicity attached to people coming up with such wild ideas of having security. Now, I did have a gun up there to give protection to the guard that I had up there 24/7, protection against mountain lions. Because we had a booth, if you've seen any photographs of it, we had a booth up there, if you want to call it a booth, but we dug a big hole out of like a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 hole in the ground, and then put a roof over it to shelter him. Because many years we just sat out there in the open sun all freaking day. And I can't tell you how many years I'd sit out there during the summer in my bare underwear just to seek any ability to be cool, because there was no shelter whatsoever. But there was a little slit that you would look out, just to keep it extremely low profile, because once you disturb the face of a mountain, it's very easy to see from a distance, and thus giving away the fact that we have a guard up there, and we didn't want that. So a mountain lion came walking by and just laid down right in front of the slit one night, scared the absolute living crap of the guard up there, and I would have been equally filling my shorts full of my own DNA if I was in his position. So I got a gun up there that night and made sure that it was always cared for and looked after, and was there for the self-defense of the guards.
But now, it wasn't a sniper post.
No. The idea of a sniper rifle, yes, we did own. Security was in ownership and possession of a professional, high-grade, specific design sniper rifle with a high-end scope on it, and we had premium rounds. I mean, it wasn't elaborate as a very professional military trained certified sniper would have, but as a civilian and as a church, we spent a lot of money on this gun, and I sold 2 other guns to make the purchase of this one gun, and it was at the direction of one of our PIs, under the guidance of his. What do we get? How do we go about getting it? And he helped us obtain it. So once we were in possession of it, I made sure that there was very few people, number one, that even knew about it, because I knew what was at play. This is not a toy. This is a serious device, and the reason we got it was to be able to take out any adversaries coming down out of the mountains, truly coming to create harm to us. And that's a natural self-defense desire, and it would have been, it's wrong for any entity in that position that would get such attention and possibility of threats to one's life, which it was very real that we had. So we had such a device. And I had it under electronic security system supervision, and only 2 people had keys to it. I had keys to it, and one staff member up in religious technology had it. Because he used to be one of my guards, got promoted up there, and he asked for it, and I was forced by the nature of the chain of command to give it. So, but I also would know if he were to go in there, it would set off my alarm. So I was sure that, but none of my guards had possession of it. And up until I left, I know that that was the case. So that Eagle booth was not used as a sniper position. Never, ever, ever. That story grew from what came up in someone's sec check, that they would follow Dave in the scope that I had up there to be able to look down and read basically a book from that position. It was such a powerful scope. And Dave just translated it in that he had me in his crosshairs all the time when he was up there. And that explains why he set the mountain on fire, and he's a criminal, and we need to get rid of him and ruin his life. And that's what happened to him. So
I think that I was going to say that the key point here is that there was these security guards we see roving around the pack base in LA. These protesters are filming, and at St. Hill and at events and stuff. They are there to protect the base and protect Scientology, but they're there also to stop people leaving and escaping. And I don't want people to overlook that these security guards are equally they're challenged on both sides, right? They have to protect
Well,
Scientology, but also keep people in, right?
here's something for everybody to understand. Legally, every security officer in the U.S. has to be in possession of uh, guard card, which is the state, at least in California, there's the state mandated that anybody who by profession performs the duties of a security officer needs to be in possession of a guard card. That guard card is certification that you attended a class on what your legal restrictions and capabilities are as a security officer and what the laws of the land
Right.
expect of you. And that is simply to observe and report. They make it very clear that you cannot put hands on and you cannot perform in any capacity as a law enforcement officer. But that doesn't stop any security entity to be presenting themselves as a level or just by observation that looks like a cop. So they get away with being able to do that. And that's the nature of it because that creates a better security atmosphere. So internally in the Sea Organization, they are the Sea Organization's version of the police.
Right.
What the outside civilian world knows as a police agency, the security officers in any Sea Organization are police officers, but having more powers over people as individuals with no legal restrictions, such as even a police officer cannot physically touch somebody unless they are physically a threat to someone else's livelihood, whereas a security officer, based off of L. Ron Hubbard's teachings, can put their hands on somebody because you're utilizing a technical procedure to control another human being, and it's brainwashed in their mind that they're doing something good and they're only doing this because that is the technology that we utilize as of Scientology, where in fact they're actually assaulting somebody and they have no right to put their hands on somebody and overriding someone's, even the staff member they're putting their hands on, cutting them short of their own rights.
Yeah.
So just by applying the technology of Scientology, it's just that cult environment. So in the Scientology world, yes, the security officers play a significant role on satisfying the needs of church executives and criminal-minded individuals such as David Miscavige, and to keep his own sheeple in line.
I want to talk a little bit about miscavige and threats and how security would deal with that as well. So we saw, for example, at the IES event in November when we were holding a protest. By the way, I'm starring loads of comments that you guys are making in the live chat, and we'll get through them at the end. You're not being ignored. I'm starring them. We'll bring them up a bit later on. So when it comes to events like the IES event in November, we had the protest outside St. Hill. We went to Paris last week.
Which people should know you and I heavily collaborated on that.
Absolutely.
Not to say that I'm trying to highlight your strong and excellent efforts out there. We worked together to help navigate.
Yeah, like
we
were
looking at what to do and what not to do.
Movements and private jets, and I spoke to Jackson. I was like, "Hey, what do I need to look out for to protect myself and the protesters? What are we likely to see? How are they going to react?"
Let's hold it off there, just because we know who's watching, Alex. So we don't want to let all of our cats out of the bag.
No, but
they know we're not stupid.
Yeah, we worked together, and Jackson was really helpful in the planning stage. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it was really fun, I got to say. And I just feel it was my little part of contribution to your incredible effectiveness over there. And everybody else that followed your direction and joined in that effort. It just goes to show how simple it is to utilize the truth and to deal with the truth and present the truth, and you can't go wrong. So
yeah. So when it comes to Dave Miscavige and these sort of events, right, and the IES protest and the Paris org opening and all of this, and we'll get into Paris specifically in a second, but what would you say are considered the biggest threats for security around David Miscavige? Is it a threat to someone trying to physically assault him? Is it a threat to, people serving in legal papers? Or like what are the priorities when it comes to him specifically?
Anybody in a high profile in today's world, in today's life, anywhere across this globe, when they're in an executive, powerful position, it's natural to be concerned about your own livelihood. Sure. So it's not wrong for Dave, as the main figurehead of Scientology, to put things into play to guarantee his own waking up the next morning, or being able to take his next poop, or have his next $100 or $2,000 breakfast, and be able to get his new suit fitted for him. But he takes it to a new level and utilizes it as he basically turns a snack into a 7-course meal in his staff's eyes, to think that anywhere he goes, if the moment his toe crosses that private property line, there's going to be a bullet trying to take the tip of his toe off. To think that it's real, when in fact it's not.
Paranoia.
But I'm also going to say that you would be stupid to not think that there's somebody out there, at least one crazy wacko, trying to do that. But the Scientology properties are set up to be able to catch such an individual so easily. That threat doesn't exist. Where it does exist is through his travels, and thus the information of where and how he travels are kept tight-lipped. Eventually, his whereabouts become public knowledge just through over the course of a few days. So he has the security of being able to get about without people knowing about it right away. But that information is always available, and I know that he doesn't like people pissing in his cornflakes with that knowledge, but he can't get around that because he has no ability to control the FAA or the information, what the FAA does with the information, or whatever entities does with that information. The people he pays, the Talon Security Company, those are hired heaters. Those are hired ex-professionals that are able to carry concealed weapons throughout the United States and even internationally. And Dave, that started long ago, where he had it transitioned from not only having me and other security officers travel with him, and I didn't do a lot of great traveling. This is just pretty much because it was in the developing stages of how security is going to be dealt with Dave. So I was a security chief at the base, so I was limited to Los Angeles and pretty much, wherever when he take bike rides around the outer perimeter and outskirts of the property, I'd be out there with him and Shelly, riding shotgun with them on the Rover bike and just being there within arm's reach of help, but giving him the freedom to run around, and was my job. But he 24/7, he has this force with him now, hired. They pay a great deal of money to have alive wherever he's at in the world. He always wants that security to know he can never feel comfortable if he just randomly got in a car, drove and shacked up in a Motel 6 and not be concerned about somebody sitting at it, even though he led nobody with any indications that he was even leaving. He would still believe that there's Martians out there. So,
what extent do they go to internationally when he's traveling? So for example, we know that he doesn't fly on commercial jets. He uses Tom Cruise's jet and other people. Would his Talon Security Company go with him, or
they would go with him, or they'd fly in advance? It would be very similar to a presidential transport, not to the extreme that our president is cared for on travel, such as armored vehicles and all that being sent in advance and people going ahead. But I tell you, I would go to Flag in advance and have run bugs through his room and all the offices and space he was going to. I'd do bug sweeps, looking for electronic devices. Go in to make sure the galley, that there's ethical people in there serving food in the galley, and no efforts are going to be made to at least get him sick and poison him just through a mishap, but not with. I wouldn't go so far as to say I was thinking at the time that somebody was in there actually going to pour poison in his food. I was more or less thinking that there's a competent individual who earnestly wants to give the best service and food possible to the leader of our church, So But I wouldn't say that that's not overlooked now, and that's something of his concern. Probably even to the point it would be crazy to not believe that there's somebody that tastes the food before he eats it, type of extreme. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not going to say that happens, but you know what? Knowing what Dave turned into and witnessing how he turned into what he is nowadays would not surprise the shit out of me at all.
Would he go to the lengths of like having a security guard standing out if he's staying in a hotel or something? Would he have a security guard standing
Oh
outside the
yeah,
door all night,
like
or would
if
he
say
have
if
someone
he just if he wanted to go to Vegas, like I witnessed him do often. Sometimes he would just go, and these were in the days where Dave wasn't so concerned about his security that Tom and him would fly to Vegas and go gambling, and then come back, and that would just be him and Tom, and he would kind of ride under the under the cloak of Tom Cruise, and nobody knew who he was until as time went on. More and more media outlets would catch Dave Miscavige in the presence of Tom Cruise, and you know that classic picture of him and Tom sitting there in the Ducati leathers on their Ducatis and looking like two guys with very small penises, I must say. But I just say that humorously because I can.
Yeah, no, I love it.
But when Dave hit that level of exposure and who he's connected to, yeah, life got a lot more serious for him. And he also, it's part of the built out in-house routine to keep track of any threats. Any threats to Scientology, where people will crazily call in or write in or show up at the doorstep saying, I'll be back. And people have done that, and I'm going to take you out, and don't let Miscavige be caught in the open because I will shoot him and kill him. That to say that stuff doesn't exist, yeah. So he does take it seriously, and right, wrong, or indifferent in people's opinion, that is a right thing to do for your own survival. But he takes it to the new level because he has the deep pockets and bankroll to throw whatever he wants wherever he wants to have it.
Yeah.
And in this case, there was people staged watching Shelley as a second layer of security across the street, unbeknownst to her and even her handlers, that they were armed individuals and most likely given extreme instructions in the event of extreme situations occurring. So, and Dave not giving two shits about the results of his stated orders. So, yeah, you have to understand this, what's in mind in this psycho who he's committed so many crimes. It's actually entertainment to him. He lost logic, contact with the moral standards of today's society in his own, it makes it really, it puffs his chest hairs out where he's like, I got all this leverage of power and ability to protect myself and have fun with the big dogs at the scene. I'm really rambling here in terms of concept, but I'm just trying to help people understand the transition of this mindset of this individual. People think it all started with L. Ron Hubbard on how poorly mistreated staff members were. Yes, that's true, but he only went to a certain level, to be honest with you. And he always, before he went to an extreme, he always looked back on how can I make this a better person. Dave don't give two shits about that. He's about getting their crimes exposed that he knows that everybody has in them, and then all those crimes basically lead that back to them trying to kill him and do him in and do harm to him. So therefore they deserve the extreme treatment that he's issuing orders on how they're to be treated. Thus the whole comes about, people being watched all the time. I'm really laying things out in a rapid fire way, but this is the true reality. And the funny thing is they don't change. Their policies, everybody's come to know that Scientology does not change. The written words of L. Ron Hubbard, even Dave Miscavige himself doesn't. And that is what a true believer does. And if you do not do as L. Ron Hubbard directs, you will see the consequences as a result. So as far as what most people become to understand, what the Office of Special Affairs directives, the policies that have been written in addition to what L. Ron Hubbard already said, it was the in-house policies based off of the writings and advices of L. Ron Hubbard and their own internal creativity and how you go about and do certain things and do underhanded taxes. I mean, they have a room, if not a couple of rooms full of bugging devices and surveillance equipment, which I helped buy, I helped utilize, and I thought what I saw was the max of what they had. And I walked in and saw these rooms full of equipment. And I'm not talking just, grocery store toy section, spy glasses and, SWAT team handcuffs or police handcuffs. That was the real shit they had in there. And I went out and bought these things, color video, color cameras, pinhole cameras,
For what
and
purpose? For OSA to use on spying on
well,
critics?
internal. I set up this elaborate system to watch this staff member. His name was Tom Romelhart. That there was 24/7 recordings in stereo and in color cameras. I had his rooms that he resided was under watch in, wired for stereo color, stereo sound, and color cameras to watch him. And I put it in the binder, the spine of this Scientology binder that sat right in front of him, 6-8 inches from his face for an entire year at least. And he never
For what
saw it
purpose? Why was he considered a threat?
because Dave wanted him recorded. He wanted it documented to safeguard and protect the church. So in case he ever went bat poop crazy, like in his eyes, what Mike Render's become, he didn't want that guy at the time who was being labeled as the most insecure and security threat that in the history of Scientology, where he was feeding hard drives from church computer rooms to the outside world, including Dave's emails. So Dave just took extreme measures, and it was pretty fun going with Ben Shaw to these elaborate security spy device places around LA and buying these equipments and just throwing down this gold credit card and walking out with at least $10,000 worth of surveillance equipment that I then got to turn around and spend all night installing.
Wow.
And then the result I got was like, that's a goddamn Jackson, you did fabulous. And I never got a complaint about what I set up because it was exactly what was wanted. And it provided exactly what was wanting to be provided, which was 24/7 documentation of this criminal guy, this criminal. So,
Yeah.
That's
Mark
the shit
and
that I
Janice are in the
did.
house, by the way. Hi to Mark and Janice on Scientology
Sorry.
Opinion Gaming.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
How's it going?
Hey, people.
Would you describe David Miscavige as a coward?
Well, ultimately, yes, because if he ever were to be caught out in the naked without the protection of the church behind him, he wouldn't know what to do with himself. And yes, a coward, I can say, is only defined by his actions of to the levels of security that he goes through to basically ultimately protect the fact that he is a coward. When it comes down, because he won't be able to defend himself in prison, he won't be able to physically defend himself from people who want to create harm on him. He wouldn't be able to defend himself through a conversation of somebody challenging him on one of his stated actions or activities or orders. His idea is to put people between him and these adversaries in his imagined world and let them be the ones to answer. But yet these people are also there to execute his very vicious, evil word and actions, where he gets off on being able to create misery to someone's soul. It's one thing to assign and see to it that they're cleaning dumpsters with the toothbrush in the hot burning desert sun. It's another, his desire is the misery. It sets in on that individual. I'm hoping this all makes sense because
It absolutely does.
I'm no psychology, professional in any way. All I can do is say, this guy is very evil, and he's figured out the way in which to get to somebody to really mess them up.
Yeah,
and he's entertained by it. Because the day which we all were assigned misery one day because of a natural disaster that happened, after sitting there and berating everybody, and I'm talking visceral, the worst language a human being can muster up about saying about another human being, you effing frickin' bastard pieces of shits. He turned around and went up and played Nintendo up in the officer's lounge. Like he didn't even have the impact of himself about, did I just do that? And kind of go work off the high of this thing that he just did to 700 people and just changed their lives forever. And he had the balls just to go right up and go play a game of Nintendo. And that was how he got his rocks off. So
I think that brings us perfectly actually to what to the Paris topic, right? And let me not pitch, but I'm going to explain my theory first, and then I want to ask your thoughts on it, right? So you've painted this perfect picture of Dave Miscavige's priorities. He's a coward. He's scared. He's a bully. He's got a big ego, and his drive is to scare and intimidate people. And he's thinking of himself first. And so, with that all in mind, um, here's my theory. I was in Paris for the opening of the Ideologue last week, and I'm pretty sure Miscavige wasn't there. If you look at the press release, they've put pictures of him speaking at the auditorium, so he was present at the building. But I believe he was there a week before, because the American OSAS security that we saw at the IS protest weren't there. There are a couple of other indicators. I believe what Miscavige did was fly on Tom Cruise's jet the week before from the UK over to France, did an inspection of the building, delivered a speech to the whales that was recorded, and then it was played at the event, the opening event on the 6th of April. Now, why do I believe this? Because France have convicted Scientology of fraud on more than one occasion. L. Ron Hubbard was actually sentenced to prison time because of the fraud, but he never served because he left the country before he could end up in prison. But France are known as a pretty anti-Scientology country, and although there aren't any outstanding threats against Miscavige legally, like there's no court cases in France that I'm aware of, it's definitely a place where he wouldn't want to spend time and have people aware that he was going to be there ahead of time. But he's hyped up the Paris org so much that people would question it if he wasn't there. So my belief is that he flew under the radar so that it reduced the threat. He ticked the box of proving to Scientologists that he was involved in the opening, but he reduced the threat level of people knowing he was there on the day. I want to show, I did this article on my blog.
Well, to quickly answer why you bring that up, first of all, I do want to say, and this, I'm not saying this legally to cover my ass for any reason, but to our listeners, positive or negative listeners, I haven't been at the base since 1997, which is a significant amount of time. But as anybody who follows this wicked world of ours that we're all here commonly a part of, listening or contributing to, one thing that's is a fact that the church doesn't change. So my expressed opinion or input about an answer that you're looking for, Alex, is an educated opinion or guess.
Oh, absolutely. And the same with this. This is just a theory.
And it's not even a theory, because I wouldn't tell you something if I didn't believe it myself. And my belief is based off of what I saw and what I know. And I just think that's important for people to understand this community, that somehow this environment is kind of someone called me, but I'm not going to be able to answer that. Somehow we got lost in what information that you're going to take as truth in this little community of ours. And I think I just want to highlight the importance of it, in that whoever talks about whatever they talk about, they have to be honest and truthful on what they're saying, because I could simply say something to sensationalize some aspect of my involvement or my believed involvement in something. I can only answer your questions, and anybody listening or asking in, I can only give you an answer based on what I saw and witnessed. And also I can support a belief such as what you're asking now about how and what went on at the base, simply off of an educated opinion based off of my mind goes back. If I was there in the position of having to create and establish what the security protocol is going to be for Dave's travels for the opening of Paris, then my mind goes right to what would I be doing? What would I be thinking of? What tools do I have available to me? What am I going to do to be the solution provider to this problem Dave is asking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm careful in how I present this information on Scientology Business.
Hold on a second, Alec. I got somebody weird at my door. I'm going to step away here for a second.
Yeah, no problem. I'll pull you up. So just to show everybody, we'll carry on until Jackson's ready. I was very careful in how I present this information as not fact, because I don't know if it's fact. You know, the fact is Tom Cruise's jet and helicopter made some mysterious movements, and I present this as, okay, this is what the fact is, and this is what I think it means, but I might be completely wrong. So this article, I haven't added it to the description, but I will add the link. This was around, this was just before the Paris opening, which is the 6th of April. The week before, 30th of March, Tom Cruise's private jet flew from Biggin Hill, which is a private airport in the UK, flew over to Paris, and it stayed in Paris for about 6 hours and then flew back. Now, we don't know if Miscavige is actually on this plane, but we know that he does fly in Tom Cruise's jet regularly. Jackson, are you ready for me to put you back in? Yeah. Welcome back.
Yeah, I was just helping somebody who needed some water.
No problem. So I was just going over the movements of the jet and how I'm being careful in saying this isn't fact. This is what I believe. The fact is Tom Cruise's jet made this journey, and I think that indicates Miscavige was there, but we don't know. And he spent 6 hours in Paris before flying back, which is the perfect amount of time for him. It lines up with the theory that he recorded something that was then played a week later at the opening. Then also couple in the helicopter movements. The next day, 31st of March, Tom Cruise's helicopter made some interesting movements. Now, Tom Cruise's helicopter hasn't gone to St. Hill since November, the IES event. So I don't see why he would go to St. Hill on this particular day if he wasn't potentially with Miscavige, you know. And he took the scenic route through central London. He dropped off at a golf course for a little while. I believe what happened was Miscavige went with Tom Cruise on his private jet to Paris, came back. The next day, they spent the day together. They did a bit of sightseeing in London through their helicopter. They went to St. Hill and then went to play a bit of golf, whether that was just Cruise or Cruise and Miscavige. And then Tom Cruise went to Longcross Studios, where he's currently filming something, because Tom Cruise's jet hasn't made those movements back to Paris ever since. So there wasn't a flight to Paris between the 30th of March and the opening of the org. There wasn't a flight afterwards, which would therefore indicate they've gone to pick Miscavige up and bring him home. So, which we would expect to see if he was there on the 6th. But these are the movements, and what are your thoughts, Jackson, on the theory?
Well, first of all, you and I have talked about this for a while, and I first want to highlight to our listening public that, Alex, you're a fine example who put some passion into doing some homework based off of the best factual knowledge we can work with. You're taking advantage of information that's available to the public out there, such as following the flight paths of registered aircraft, whether it's fixed wing or a rotary wing, such as a helicopter. You discovered that there's an ability to do so, and so you took advantage of it. And again, peeing in Dave's cornflakes. And you know to the depth in which we've discussed this, but I just want people to understand that through Alex's research, he collaborated with the best sources of information, me being one of them. I'm not trying to go, hey, I'm the best source of information. I'm just saying, relying on people who actually have a better level of likable knowledge than somebody else, thus producing such a result, because that's an incredible amount of documentation going on there that does bring up 101 different questions in terms of our conclusive ideas of understanding what was at play. It's a true assumption at this point, but it does align with an educated opinion or an educated guess of historically, and knowing Dave's entertaining, elaborate ideas, self-satisfying ideas, such as from past experience when he was initially doing these IS events, the maiden voyage events aboard the free ones. Very little time was spent of his actually involved in the event. A majority of his time there was spent entertaining himself, scuba diving, and yada, yada, yadas, and spending church money, and the IS affording him expensive trips. And when he would go to the IS at St. Hill, most of his time was spent shopping and taking jaunts up to Ireland and so on and so forth. So you're demonstrating a lot of these where the aircraft went,
Hmm.
it aligns with what I know and what others know and believe about the habits of Dave Miscavige.
I
And
think what I was just going to say, one question I do have though, and this is perhaps the hole in my theory, is there isn't currently an outstanding overt threat to Miscavige being in France. Like, he's not currently wanted. There's not a warrant that I'm aware of out for his arrest. So he might be scared of France because of their history of being anti-Scientology, but it's not like he needs to avoid that being there in person in case he's going to be arrested or whatever. Do you think that do you think it's down to Miscavige genuinely just being scared and worried that something might happen and trying to avoid it, or do
yeah,
you
and when
think
the
like,
threats truly don't, I'm sorry, this slight delay, we tend to
no,
step
it's
in
fine.
each other's
Oh,
toes.
yeah, I was just going to say, like, there could not actually really be a threat because there isn't anything
No,
outstanding.
well, he keeps the facade up to keep his personal jollies high. You know what I mean? If he were to acknowledge the fact that these things ebb and flow, he can only go do certain things under certain conditions. When the threats exist, he can't be as exposed to the public access, have access, or the public having so much access to him, if that makes sense. Whereas when his intelligence, his established intelligence lines that he pays a lot of money to have in play, verifies that there is no threat or there is a threat. That's what dictates Dave's actions. And I'll give an example, such as you were probably on their radar. You have a certain level of impact in Dave's world through your actions. That is a guaranteed. And it's not just you, it's the attention that you muster up to bring to the world that he's going to be part of, such as in this case with St. Hill. And then what can grow from that, he then builds a defense against. And that's where you see people coming from Los Angeles, from the OSA office, the Office of Special Affairs, to run and manage the United Kingdom Office of Special Affairs, because Dave has more trust and believe in them. Those people in LA are more capable than the people in the UK. And sometimes he'll rarely run across somebody in the UK, which he had a favorite OSA staff out in the UK that he would even at times perch up above Mike Rinder when Mike Rinder was there, and he would openly degrade Mike.
Graham Wilson or Janet Laveau?
I don't know. I just remember Mike telling me the story about it, and that was just classic
Yeah.
Dave move. But
Yeah.
So in terms of the level of execution and plan that would be at play would be based off of his intelligence and who's going to be there. And in this case, it makes total sense that he showed up to Paris a week in advance. He had to get something on tape as though he was there. He can't avoid that. And believe it or not, we've actually reshot scenes in the film studios back at the base as though we were at one place. An example of this would have been when Scientology involved itself in promoting Battlefield Earth. It was at a modern day Woodstock, which was out nearby in San Bernardino, and somebody screwed up the shoot of that. So to get those promotional shots that we went there to do, but were failed to be gotten, we recreated the US Festival, which is what it was called at the time, in the Cine studio, and everybody got dressed up in bikinis and all that. That was an elaborate effort just to get promotional shots for Battlefield Earth.
Wow.
But the whole base was involved, and we were involved for days and hours, all hours a night. So that would just be an example of the elaborate direction that he would give to his minions to get this done. So in this case, you are right. You're right to believe this. The most likely scenarios: playing golf, went here, went there, showing that flight path. Where did that flight path take the helicopter? What's at those locations the helicopter flew to, landed, spent an hour or two there? And the fact that we have access to that information gives us a better ability to predict and shake hands with the never changing Dave Miscavige. It's just, he's always being a criminal, using hard-earned money happily donated to the church, to then turn around and use it as play money or protection money, not to go to the cause that these front groups that the church has established, that they make them pay for out of their own pockets, but the IAS does not give money out of their quote-unquote war chest to support So it's all money spent on high-end attorneys to protect Dave, ultimately, and that's where a majority of that money goes to. And that protection includes PIs, equipment, high-end attorneys, retaining costs for Talon Security Agency to be 70% of their income, and the use of their employment force to protect Dave Miscavige wherever he goes.
Yeah.
And that's just the way Dave works, my friends. And call me a liar, Osa. Come sue me, take me to court. I know it'll never happen because I speak the truth. And it's undefensible truth. You cannot prove otherwise. So I could prove it from sitting in my garbage truck that I drive every day and shut them down. It's just it's again the church. Dave Miscavige is so predictable. So you are right, Alex, and that was a good example to our listeners of how easy it is just when you spend a little bit of time and effort into knowing what's going on and shaking hands with the reality that Scientology has become the opposite of what we once knew it to be. And it is a business masquerading as under the cloak of religion and getting away with it simply because of separation of state and religion. That's it. That's all.
And we
And
can see also another piece of evidence about Miscavige's priorities and concerns. When we look at the November IES protest, there was one time Janet Laveau, who's the commanding officer of OSA here in the UK, the security on the gate were telling her to calm down and had to tell her to leave for a minute because she was getting really angry and upset. And the security, who are a private firm that were quite fair and they were quite nice to us, and they were quite friendly, and they told me that Miscavige was on the phone to Janet, yelling and screaming at her down the phone, saying, "Why haven't you shut these protesters down? You need to
right.
get them away." And so security told her to calm down. And then the second thing is, on the same weekend, they opened this new building, the Qual building, qualifications,
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't really any way they could block off a view from the road, and they certainly weren't expecting us. And we were there shouting and chanting, and they couldn't really do anything about it. And I heard from an insider that actually Miscavige was meant to open the building and was there about to walk up on the stage, and then heard us shouting from the side of the road. And at that point, he chickened out and sent Aaron Banks in his place to open the building. Which just shows Miscavige is terrified of being embarrassed or interrupted by protesters. And I can
Both of
imagine,
those.
and he knows that I'm behind that, obviously, and I can imagine that all played a part in his decisions when it came to going to Paris, right? Because he knew that I was going to be there, he knew there was going to be a protest, and so maybe flying a week before protects him from the possibility of being embarrassed at the opening event. What do you
Right.
think?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Whether we're exact, what we do know is we don't know.
Yes.
And but based off of hindsight's always 2020. So the more we look at it, the easier it is to see what's at play, especially with the results of both sides of the coin. I can honestly tell you that your actions and that group's actions that attended that protest were not predicted fully by the staff, and thus most likely Dave did chew up that OSA representative because he was upset and getting in the way of his little dog and pony show that he was putting on to the big donors to collect more money, because that really harms his income flow. And that's all he's there for, is to glad hand everybody and get them to pony up money and put them in a position of they have to do it, otherwise they know they're going to get in trouble. But it's with the smile on his face. And you mean so much to me, and his crappy speeches that are written, he thinks it's just amazing how he even concludes that those are anything logically to be publicly stated the way that they are presented. But nonetheless, that is his whole effort. So again, in this Paris opening, he had to have some sort of physical representation. That's why I had that picture done with all those local representatives of whatever capacity they're in. And to no fault of theirs, they got roped into a facade and to falsely that led to believe that they're truly supporting something, when if they only did their homework, it just goes to show how they're not in the know about their own field that they themselves are involved in, whether it's religious freedom, representative or whoever these people were, they obviously didn't do the homework, and the church was hopeful that up to the day of the event and them getting on stage, that they themselves wouldn't pull out because they were like, hey, I looked into you a little bit more and I don't support that. They were always probably just a step away from, they probably had other dignitaries lined up that fell through because they did their homework and said, F you, I'm not coming. And
especially in France, like Scientology is hated in
that's
France.
the humorous thing, that you sit there and you wonder, it's like, why would this guy be invited by the church? And how is that expected to be a point of impact as a public involvement and impact to these high donors in Scientology, when they're almost nobodies? And I don't say that negatively to what they choose to be, that person that represents whatever the church was looking. They were just looking for a title that gave a slight ring to.
Yeah, it's like the deputy head of weeding at the Gardeners Association of Western segment of East Grinstead or something. Like, it's a nobody.
It's just
like,
a small little name in their title that gives reference to the social betterment efforts of Scientology. Just enough to justify that you can't say that they don't support us from this very politically high-profile position of level, this position of importance. Yeah, they're a position of importance, but not a position of significance. Those are payrolls that can, if we need to trim the fat in this organization, those are probably positions to be let go first. And again, I don't pick on the position and things that these people that were invited to the church, that they chose to do in their life and do in their life. They do play their significant role, but the church takes advantage of them and makes them appear in the listening eyes that the people, the audience they're speaking to at these events, that they think they're more than what they really are. And thank you for being here. It's just a demonstrated current fact that the church cannot muster up true heads of anything significant to come support their cause, because anybody in their right mind, and especially in such a position, is going to be politically motivated. I better look into this before I go involve myself.
Very well said. Yeah.
And they don't do it, and they end up falling to it. How many times has it been discovered well after the fact? It's like, hey, you got yourself involved. Did you know this? This is what you in essence were supporting. They're like, oh my God, retract, back up, beep, beep, beep. And that's after the fact, and they can't undo what's already been done, but they do whatever they can to undo what still resides as documentation that they were there and supported it. But nonetheless, the church, they don't give two shits once that ribbon is pulled and the people leave. They don't do no follow-ups.
Empty 3 days later.
Yeah, not only is the building empty, but these dignitaries, these quote unquote dignitaries that they invite to said events, the church is like, I'll call you next week. Thanks for coming. I'll see you on your kid's birthday, whatever. None of that has ever followed through. Yeah. Never. I never witnessed that at all. So it just, again, the bullshit factor meter is running strong when the church puts on such an event and invites such individuals. They just never see. They hide the bullshit meter and squelch the sounds that it's making. Hey, I'm screaming over here. This is bullshit. Such as the protesters. And again, that's just a threat to Dave's bankroll. And that's his motivation. Yeah. That's all he's there. That's all he goes to those events for. That's the only reason he puts them on. The wow factor, and it's running out of gas. This little game of his little drive of his little machine that he's created is running out of gas. And the siphon tube keeps surfacing and sucking air and falling below the level and catching gas, and the engine runs for a while, and then the bumps in the road, it pops out of the supply of gas, starts sucking air, and the machine starts slowing down, and Dave scrambles to get people to get that fuel supply going strong, to keep the game going. Yeah. No, the ship's already sunk. It's at the bottom, but Dave has built at the bottom of the deep ocean that the ship sunk in this bubble around it to make it look as though there's paradise, that lies off the stern or bow of this boat, and everything's pretty, but they're 10,000 leagues down below the surface of the water, Yeah, so
well said. Well, look, Jackson, we're over an hour, so do you want to do some Q&A? Let's get through some of these questions.
I would love to, whatever you've captured
Alrighty. So Jeff Hawkins here. The lake, he's talking about the int base here. The lake was supposed to be for recreation, but it was full of leeches, and its only regular use it got was throwing people in as punishment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think we may have used it once or twice for our annual yearly anniversary of the Organization, and people were finding that the more time you spend in it, the more leeches attached to you, and I don't think that they knew how to control the leeches. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Next one. Love it. This isn't a question, it's a comment, but comment for both of you. That's a great point. David Miscavige didn't care why people were trying to leave, only how to keep them from leaving. That's
yes,
sad.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so true. Love it.
Fluffy Wicket said, hi all from a rainy afternoon in LA. Great to see Gary live. Haven't seen him online in a while. Good to see you here. Thank
Well,
you.
you're welcome, Fluffy Wickets.
Yeah. Fluffy Wicket's also got a question. How does Scientology have access to run license plates?
Well, Fluffy Wickets, as Scientology does, you too have the ability to have access to run license plates. As long as you got money, you can obtain that information. There's plenty of
stuff, right?
There's many private investigators in there you can go to. They have their own connections, and the right price will get you the right information.
Money talks, unfortunately.
Yep.
That's
that is truly how it happens.
Yeah.
I used to get it, believe it or not, is back in the day before technology became what it is today, police scanners were a great tool in that I could have an officer request to come out to my security booth, take a report on something. I would sit there and watch him call in the information over his radio, and I'd listen to the response back to the dispatcher and get the address and the person's name of who just drove by based off the license plate I gave them. And then I'd go out and pay a visit to their house. It was that quick and easy for me. But today's technology keeps that information secure. But that's just a way to show you,
wow, it's crazy.
The solutions I came up to the problems I was demanded to solve. So,
Judy Claire, I'm interested to hear everything that you've got to say on this subject of security, Jackson. You're very open and honest.
Well, thank you, Julie. I try to do my best, and all I can guarantee you is my heart is driven to give you the best truthful answer to any question given to me.
Yeah, precisely. Juliana Bittencourt, thank you for being a channel member for 10 months. Thank you both for continually exposing the cult.
Well, you're welcome, Juliana. You're a sweet gal from, I think, what is it? I want to say Colombia. Is it Colombia? She's
Argentina, I think.
Argentina, yes. Argentina. Messi hometown, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Great talent comes from that geographic.
Absolutely.
And some hot ladies, I might say, but I'll just say that.
Fluffy Wickets has another one here. This is where you're talking about scanning for bugs ahead of Miscavige arriving at a flag. Has any bug ever been found?
Yeah, I knew of one that we found in, that's how we got into the shutting down. But a Xerox machines back in the day used to retain, just by their natural design, the last 5 or 6 pages that you would Xerox. And so we had repairmen that would come in and capture that information, quote unquote, repairmen. They would come in and capture that information. It was just 5, whatever was last Xerox. It wasn't much information, sure. But yeah, that could be considered a bug. An actual electronic device, I never myself caught one. I did train on identifying them and saw the ability to recognize them and the equipment that I used. We never located one. And I attribute to that because we had such good security established to keep that environment safe for our dear leader. Kind of proved that the technology they would use to verify it just verified my effectiveness. So
there we go.
Whether the equipment was properly tuned to identify a bug, I really couldn't answer that. But I had different redundant checking abilities to cross-check, and verify that there's no bugs in places. So yeah.
Alrighty.
I know cars were actually bugged. Yes.
Wow. Scientology London, I'm amazed Scientology hasn't actually bought their own jet. Now, my theory on this is because if Scientology had their own jet, it would be very easy to track Miscavige because he would always be in that jet. Whereas
that wouldn't be the reason they would not have it.
Cruise's jet, but there's always a suspicion. He could use multiple different people's jets, so there's never any proof of where he is. But I
Let's
don't
go
know.
deep on that concept, Alec. If the
Okay.
church were to buy a jet, the only person to have access to it would be Dave Miscavige and Dave Miscavige only.
Yeah.
Any person in their right mind that would invest such a fine piece of equipment, it takes money to keep that thing going. Not only do you need to keep FAA standard regulations met on safety standards with inspections, it's a high price tag just to own an aircraft. It don't matter its size. It could be a single engine aircraft. It could be a 747. There is a price tag. It does not sit there and is ready to hit the start button and fly at any given time. Before anything flies in the air, it has to go through a whole massive amount of I almost said sec
But
checks,
it's not.
safety checks.
But it's not as though Scientology don't have that money.
Well, Alex, you also need to understand. I mean, those things, that in itself, that's a hefty purchase of,
Millions
tens to hundreds of millions of dollars,
every
and
year as well in upkeep.
and then in every year in upkeep, and anybody who rightfully owns one of those, just as Scientology is smart with obtaining real estate and living and having liquid assets in real estate, what we can do with all this money, that doesn't play out when you own aircraft. And I also witnessed this firsthand with Craig Jensen's aircraft because I saw what he did to maintain possession of his own aircraft, and he rented it out all the time. When Craig wasn't using it, it was in the air flying some celebrity around. And that is how you keep up on it, because not only with the aircraft maintenance, you have to pay for a flight crew to and fro. You have to have and maintain the flight crew's stated safety regulations of having enough rest, and they can have only so much time in the air before they have to rest and be down, and it doesn't fit Dave's schedule, and it's a whole mess of headaches. So the best thing to do is you typically lease one and you pay for the service that someone else is taking care of all those issues, and you just have it at your beckoning call. So in Dave's case, he has whales at his beckoning call that he can call upon and get, who have offered up by intimidation, more or less, that Dave would, hey, that's be kind of you if I could use your jet once. Oh, yes, sir, you can use it anytime you like. I'll make it available to you, And they would make it available to him, from Craig's to Travolta's to Cruises, the people that have the ability to own such a thing and willing to dump that kind of money in it. So, yes.
And also consider if Scientology had their own jet, you're talking about hiring it out. That's something very common with private jets, is you hire it out and charter it.
Yep.
Who would charter a jet from the Church of Scientology
And
nowadays?
they
Not
would have
many
zero
people.
security on the reliability of it being a secure thing to travel in, because this was just loaded through a bunch of crackheads who took an excursion to have breakfast in Paris that morning with their buddies from Entourage. And, and then it comes back and lands and they clean it up and there's bugs galore in it. Then he's got to spend all that time and effort to have a secure environment. He just can't have what he wants through ownership of an aircraft. It's just, and again, I could be wrong. Dave may be hitting a whole nother level, and it's like, fuck it. Half of Scientology's bank, deep pockets will go into supporting this aircraft to be my own. There's no documented effort of it. You would find it. You could do your search, Alex, under the FCC, what aircraft is owned by who, and the church it would all be purchased through another name and have layers of businesses attached to it to not show.
Even
But
Tom Cruise's jets, like that took a lot of work because it's owned by a company. It's owned by a company that's owned by,
So Tom himself doesn't own it. He's just got a major bankroll part of it.
Yeah, precisely.
So that's just evidence right there.
Marla Dillard question: what is?
Plus, I don't think it will look good in the eyes of the IRS by you, mind you.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Question: what is with the use of blackout blinds at all the organizations with the protesters?
That is something that was established years ago about the run and hide whenever there's somebody peeking over the fences of Scientology through the air or on the ground. And it just became standard practice that and it's strange, and it just kind of highlights the craziness and awkwardness that Scientology is. They have no social skills and no realization of what their actions have an impact on the outside looking in, the outside people looking in. And they don't care about it. They just don't want their own staff being seen. And just for fear, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's probably also because, protesters and SPs are seen as N theta, which is like bad news. It's intimidating.
No,
so
you have some validity in that concern, Alec. The motivation is not based off of that. It is, we do not want private guys. Look at all that stuff that was found in the dumpster recently by that gentleman in Denver. Or was it Denver? I think it was Denver,
No, I've missed that.
or Chicago. One of the never-end protesters went dumpster diving like the church does. He reversed the process on them and found all these documents that should have otherwise been shredded.
Wow.
Yeah, this just happened recently. Some gentleman was on Aaron's channel. They were talking about it a few days ago. You may want to look that up.
I'll
But
have to go check it out.
yeah, that's a big no-no in the eyes of the Sea Organization. And someone's in some deep doo-doo for that. Guaranteed. There's no way around that. They're not, just because we're sitting here talking about it publicly, they're not going to not go put that person in hard labor camp conditions simply because we're talking about it. They just ship them to some other geographic location, hide them in the U.S. somewhere, and still him or her, and ruin their life, and simply because they went out security. Because now Aaron's having a holiday with it, and that alone, it's not the information that they have that they're concerned about, that they're exposed with their internal plans, because they're all fucking crazy plans anyways. It's just the fact that we now know of recent ongoings within a Church of Scientology, and that, oh my God, there's so much protection. People are, do something about this before I get in trouble, and I'm the one that's being, I got to scrub dumpsters with a toothbrush and can't see my wife anymore and eat rice and beans, and they know that shit, that the wrath of Xenu's coming down, and you talk about, that just ruined someone's life, unfortunately, and that's way out of our control, but that is what goes on in that world.
Love It says, one day David Miscavige and Karma are going to meet. Oof, yeah.
And so is Bubba in Cell Block 2 going to meet David. I truly don't wish that upon anybody. That's one human being that I wish upon. Somebody would have their own wicked, evil ways with him. So deserving. It would just scratch the surface of what he's so deserving of.
Couldn't agree more. Jessica Beach, when you were in, what did you think of Dave's extravagance?
Those progressively built up. Like witnessing him owning his own car, that was interesting. You never knew exactly how he got it, but the fact that he had his own car to get around is, it's like, dude, well, that's what you get when you're in such a position. And then the other execs, and then you'd go up and see all these things that were being installed in the executive lounge, and the quality of clothes, and his elaborate office. It just all, what I thought about it and look at it as an extravagance, I look at it as that's what came with the position. That's not even what I just told myself. It's just, that's what I came to recognize, more or less. And I never took it as he was taking advantage of anything until after I left and saw what levels he took it to. Now, I will say that I did witness the transition from him him taking over L. Ron Hubbard spaces that were otherwise off out of bounds for anybody to go in except for the cleaners, and the specific crew looking after to maintain L. Ron Hubbard's personal space. Dave eventually set it up where he took over L. Ron Hubbard's laundry cleaning line and utilized the equipment that was there exclusively. Now, internally in Scientology, that's a no-no. Out in these people listening to us, it sounded how batshit crazy. Why would you have a dry cleaning machine for L. Ron Hubbard's clothes when he's never going to show up to wear them? But it was just keeping on that image and belief that L. Ron Hubbard's coming back. So they would keep his clothes clean at any given time. So if he decided to wear these beige brown polyester pants and the high shoots and that vest and that hat and his, what do they call it? The
cravat.
No, cravat or ascot.
Yeah, an ascot. Yeah.
Yeah. There was always a clean one available in whatever color he chose. So that was the standard in which we would maintain it. So it maintained the L. Ron Hubbard coming back. So Dave started taking possession and occupying L. Ron Hubbard's personal space to be used by himself. Even so much that he moved L. Ron Hubbard's space. He would have it dismantled, and then Dave would have the whole place rebuilt so he could occupy that, and then 3 adjoining offices. It was interesting witnessing that transition over the course of time. Even so much, we had this elaborate exercise building built with the intent to be there, available to all the base staff to exercise, lift weights. Had a great sound system. You can listen to some excellent music while you're down there working out, doing free weights or bench presses or whatever. But Dave made it off limits to the staff, except to himself, and he turned it into his own exclusively used. I mean, it was like 2,000 square foot maybe 1,500, but nonetheless, it was a large facility for exclusive use for Dave Miscavige. And then Shelley eventually coaxed him into, hey, the guards should be able to go down there. We want security guards that are fit, so let them go down there working. And goes, Dave, like, yeah, okay, as long as I'm not there, they can do it. So we will go down there and use it. But yeah, custom bikes, motorcycles were made for him, and then he got better and better vehicles to drive in. So yeah, there was this progressive transition, and then it grew into wildfire once I left. Dave just got tanning beds and gold leafed this, and
as much as we didn't see that in London, obviously firsthand, we did see his nice fancy suits, and we saw him traveling in nice cars, and we knew he came in a private jet. And from a London perspective, we kind of just thought, well, yeah, he deserves it. He's the most
right,
ethical person on the planet. He's running the org, the whole of Scientology, which is changing the planet to be a better place. And so if anyone deserves VIP treatment, it's him. Like, that's our view of, like, when we were in London, we're like, great, go for it. Of course he's got private suits and private jets and all of it, like nice suits and private jets. He deserves it. Go
right.
for it. It wasn't seen as an extravagance. It was seen as almost a, like, well done, sir.
Well, here's an example of how elaborate Dave goes unnecessarily. Any organization that has been deemed ideal, that was purchased, that these grand openings that are being facade, that you see people, protesters at the Portland org, the Paris org, Texas, Chicago, these new orgs opening, they are so oversized for the public and people that they serve. Dave did the exact same thing even with his own organization. If you take a look at the aerial footage of the INT base and what the RTC building 50 looks like, you will see how big it is. And does RTC as an organization truly occupy productively that square footage? Not in any way whatsoever. And in fact, when that building was built, my understanding is just a handful of people occupied. I mean, that was basically putting a handful of people to utilize, I think,
whole office building.
I think it was like 60,000, 80,000 square feet. I may be overshooting it, but it was definitely more than 10,000 square feet for a handful of staff who eventually he got rid of and boiled it down to just a close hand. But that would just be an example of how extravagant Dave takes things. And it's all looked upon in his eyes as a liquidized asset because he has to maintain appearances for the IRS, that money is just not sitting in his bank account. He invests in buildings, and therefore I'm sure somebody's paying rent on that. I guarantee you he's having somebody pay rent on his own building that he's not occupying. So
just like Hubbard did. Yeah.
So
alrighty, let's do this last question because we should start wrapping up here. Is another great one.
Are we wrapping up only out of necessity for something, or I truly, like I said, I the people who spent the time writing a question, I just think we should give them, at this point, say no more. Sorry, folks, but I do want to respect.
Yeah,
is that okay?
We'll get the last couple. There's one here starred Marla Dillard. Question, Jackson, in regards to members of Church Scientology, both public and Sea Org, who are leaving, would you encourage them to report any criminal experiences to the FBI or Interpol? I would say absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. And if you have trouble trying to figure out how to do that, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm firefighter, the number 0 and the number 2 at outlook.com. We can begin dialogue about it. And I can help guide you to the best of my ability and knowledge, because I know it's been done before and included by myself. So yes, that is part of this effort, is to get these known covered up crimes and facts, truth provided to those who need the truth to then be able to act.
Sure. Absolutely. And one just came in here, which is a good one. V. Babcock. When Dave Miscavige remodeled Hubbard's personal rooms and spaces, was it reduced to leprechaun size to accommodate his height?
Yeah, the floor was covered with apple boxes to raise his ability to sit effectively behind a desk. So, yeah, there was effort. It became, I do have to say, and this sounds humorous, what it truly is, but there was a new attitude born into the design of spaces that he would occupy, considering his height. Because if you went out and were looking for elaborate office desks that were on display at some high-end furniture company. They're all designed mostly for an average size human, which Dave, but by no default of his own, we just have fun with the fact that he's a
Oh
short
yeah,
little
I mean,
fucker.
I'm a short guy. I'm 5 foot
Yeah.
five, and
And
I have
life
no
does
problem
that,
with it.
but he's a cult leader
Yeah.
that I used to witness. All you could hear is his stomp, 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 and his final clump, clump onto his apple box when he would sit there to do a base briefing. So it was actually this unspoken comedic thing at play. But
Yeah.
yes, his height consideration was applied to the things he would occupy, and a lot of it was the podiums that he would stand behind at such public events.
At the
It
events, yeah.
didn't. You could have a 6 foot woman being part of the presenters at said event, and she would be the one leaning over to a
Oh, there
short.
are some great pictures of like a basketball player talking
Yeah,
at an ideal org opening who's like 6 foot whatever, and then
yeah.
miscavage, and the podium looks so tall, like small in comparison to the really big tall
It
person.
looks perfect for him, and it's all about him.
That's all
And
that matters.
if somebody he's five, what is he, 4'13", 4 foot 13 inches, 4'14". But if there's somebody who's 5 foot average, your average height, 5'8", 5'10", 6 foot, 6'2", those are the ones that have to suffer, and he don't care about it.
Yeah,
You better make sure that podium doesn't make me look ridiculous. So
exactly.
yes, efforts were made. To what extreme, I don't know. I'm sure there was a stool by his bedside for him to climb up into bed. You know what I mean? Or the bedposts were sawed off to bring the bed closer to the ground. I say that kind of stuff. The tanning bed's legs were shortened, I'm sure, and stuff like that. So, and then booster seats and phone books were added to the cars that he drove. So,
Absolutely. One Love 51,000, I think. Jackson on the right exposing the abuses that occurred. Alex on the left fighting for those being abused now. This was so good. Let's do it again. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining
yeah.
us.
Well, there you go.
And Jackson, thank you for joining and doing this. I think
Yeah.
this was a really great conversation, and I'd love to have you back again at some point if you'd be up for it, and we can
Well,
talk more and
yeah, I say anytime because literally I do mean anytime, but that obviously requires, especially you're 8-10 hours, 10 minutes ahead of me. Somebody said go Spurs. Are the Spurs playing now? Go Dodgers, baby. Yeah, maybe he has a ramp like Dachshunds. That's pretty funny. They're fluffy wickets. Yeah, that kind of puts a downer on Dachshunds. But yeah, we'll schedule something, Alex, as normal.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. There's a link to Jackson's channel in the description, so go show him some love. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee in the link down below. Jackson, do you have coffees or anything set up, or I don't know if you do.
No, Alex, I have no interest in drawing any level of monetary value out of
It's fine.
My involvement here. So I don't have that set up. It doesn't entertain me in any of the slightest to figure out how to do it.
People can still support you with subscribing and liking and commenting.
Spread the word.
That sort of stuff. Spread the word.
Support.
That's why we're all here. That's the most important thing, right? Above anything else.
Be more comfortable with willing to, hopefully what I've given you is another level of ability to be comfortable with your choice to leave Scientology, if that's some of the people listening to us. Other than that, hopefully I've filled in the void and gaps for people having questions as to why Scientology is the way it is nowadays, from my perspective. So,
well said. Thank you so much, Jackson.
Yeah.
And we will catch you guys soon on the next one. Alrighty. See you later, guys.
Peace.